Beauty and intelligence are an amazing combination. And in times of war and conflict, the application of both can be the difference between survival and death. The honeypot trap, or the use of one's attractiveness to lure a person to a position of vulnerability, is an old trick that has been used for millennia in a variety of scenarios in order to get an individual to let down their guard, and they, instead of finding themselves in a favorable position, alternatively, discover themselves in an unpleasant or hostile situation. During the Second World War, this tactic was popular among members of the resistance throughout the European theater and was used to acquire information, help infiltrate German intelligence offices, or to kill Nazis. When the Netherlands was invaded and then occupied by the Nazis in 1940, three young women quickly joined up with the Dutch resistance and began working to undermine the Germans and work to destroy their grasp on their homeland. Their favorite technique was to use their good looks to lure Nazi soldiers and collaborators away from their posts into remote areas and then kill them, becoming expert assassins and saboteurs. The story of Fredi Oversteegen, her sister Truus, and Hannie Schaft have become well known for their success at seducing and then killing Nazi soldiers during World War II. Welcome to History Decoded, and in this video, we will be looking at three courageous women who used their good looks and ingenuity to seduce and then kill Nazi soldiers during the Second World War. The red-haired girl and the killer sisters, Hannie Schaft and Fredi and Truus Oversteegen. Truus and Fredi Oversteegen were 16 and 14 years old respectively when the Netherlands was invaded by the Germans on May 10, 1940, and it was not long before the sisters hid a Jewish family in their home in Haarlem and distributed anti-Nazi leaflets to their neighbors. Their mother supported their efforts and gave her approval to Frans van der Wiel, the commander of the Haarlem Raad van Verzet, or the RVV, Council of Resistance. In taking her daughters under his wing, Fredi and Truus first began assisting the partisans by smuggling Jewish children out of the occupied country or to secure locations, and working closely with a network of associates, and helping to run safe houses and refugee organizations. Proving their mettle, the siblings were quickly given more dangerous jobs by the resistance, such as taking part in the bombing of German transports and trains or moving munitions across the Netherlands to other resistance members or divisions. They did this by hiding the weapons in baskets on their bicycles and crossing from one location to another. But their most daring work was what made them famous within the resistance, killing Nazi soldiers, officers, and collaborators. Fredi and Truus were often assigned colleagues to help them carry out the hits, one of whom was a young woman called Hannie Schaft. The three girls would form a strong bond and began carrying out assassinations on the Nazis and their allies. Janetje Johanna, Jo Schaft, was studying law at the University of Amsterdam when the Second World War began, and she became fervent to stand against the Nazi regime, working with the International Red Cross to send care packages to captured Polish officers. Her passion, too, was only further fueled by the German invasion of the Netherlands, and over the next 2 years, she began causally working with the resistance against the Nazi regime by distributing underground anti-fascist or communist pamphlets and newspapers. As the Nazis continued to tighten their grasp on the Netherlands by positioning their administration into posts of power in order to oversee and control the government and the Dutch way of life, Schaft was adamant on resistance, working with partisan members to undermine the Nazi overseers by stealing ID cards and forging new identities for Jews, communists, and other resistance members. In the spring of 1943, Schaft and her classmates were told they had to declare their loyalty to the German authorities to be able to continue their educations at the university, while Jewish students were not allowed to return to their studies at all. Schaft, along with the majority of her fellow students, refused to sign the petition, and she left school. She returned to her parents' home in Haarlem, bringing with her two Jewish classmates and close friends, Feline Polak and Sonia Frank, who went into hiding. Frank was caught en route to another safe house and was sent to Auschwitz, where she died. Polak survived the war. Schaft, enraged by the capture and death of Frank, began expanding her resistance efforts, working closely with the RVV, and after she passed a loyalty test, she was given the code name Hannie. Hannie became incredibly close to the Oversteegen sisters, and the three of them worked together on multiple missions, moving weapons or blowing up bridges with dynamite, but the three were asked to take part in assassinations to help further the Dutch efforts to free the Netherlands. They agreed. Fredi, despite being the youngest of the three, was the first of the three young women to successfully eliminate a Nazi, who she shot in the side of the head as she rode by him on her bicycle. While this was a popular technique to kill the enemies of the Dutch resistance, Hannie, Fredi, and Truus began honing their skills to become far more effective in their work for the resistance, leaving less to chance when they carried out their missions. Their preferred method was far more refined than biking alongside or behind the target and shooting at them, and instead, allowed them to utilize their beauty and youth to convince their targets to follow them to their deaths. After dressing in nice clothes and making sure to do their makeup up right, one of the girls would go into taverns frequented by Nazis and Dutch collaborators and identify the mark. Either Hanny, Truus, or Freddy would approach their target and work on getting the Nazi to leave the bar with them, either by asking them to accompany them on a walk or by promising a tryst in the neighboring woods or alleyway. The Nazi and his seductress would then go out to the chosen location, and often while he was attempting to initiate the romantic encounter, either the one who lured him away from the bar or her partner would kill the unsuspecting soldier with a single gunshot to the face or back of the head. The girls would then hop on their bicycles and escape, with no one the wiser as to what had happened. This method became the trio's standard procedure for multiple assassinations, and their ingenuity would allow them to kill multiple targets, which included members of the German secret police or the Sicherheitsdienst, SD, the SS, the Wehrmacht, or their Dutch collaborators. Before heading out for a hit, Hanny would always fix bright red hair and touch up her lipstick and mascara, once telling Freddy that if they failed in their mission, she wanted to die looking beautiful. Hanny's success with the resistance led the Germans to search for her, sending out intel throughout the Netherlands to capture and interrogate the girl with the red hair. Hanny dyed her hair black and began wearing large round glasses to disguise herself, and often traveled around with Truus, who dressed as a young man and her companion. The pair, acting as a couple, would be able to move undetected between checkpoints and outposts and still be able to kill multiple targets, with Hanny tricking the men to follow her and Truus waiting in the selected area to kill them. Along with her primitive disguise, Hanny's fluency in German allowed her to blend in easily, going to the bars to listen to the conversations of Nazi officers, obtaining information for the RVV, and flirt with soldiers to gain their trust. In the summer of 1944, shortly after the D-Day invasions, Hanny and fellow RVV member Jan Bonnekamp were paired together to carry out two important assassinations. First, the pair shot and killed Piet Johan Faber, a Nazi supporter, and then went after Willem Ragut, a SD policeman. Riding up on Ragut on their bikes, Hanny shot first, her bullet striking him in the back. When he turned, Bonnekamp shot him in the head, but Ragut managed to shoot Bonnekamp in the stomach before collapsing to the ground, dead. The two partisans fled, and Bonnekamp was caught quickly. He brought to the hospital where he was tortured, and he revealed Hanny's identity to the Nazis. Hanny's parents, who had always supported her efforts with the resistance, were arrested and sent to Herzogenbusch concentration camp. With Bonnekamp imprisoned and wounded, Hanny and the Overstegen sisters sought to help free him but could not get close enough. He died shortly after. The pressure to locate Hanny forced her to go underground and evade capture. Even though she was a highly sought-after target, Hanny's parents were released 9 months later from Herzogenbusch. Hanny mourned the death of her comrade and was terrified of it all happening again, falling into a depression while her parents were imprisoned. Despite this, she became fervent in the cause as Freddy and Truus continued to carry out the efforts of the resistance, helping with bombings and assassinations. On March 1st, 1945, Truus and Hanny carried out the assassination of Willem Zirkzee, a policeman and member of the Dutch Nazi group, the National Socialist Movement, NSB, as retaliation for the execution of 15 resistance members. 14 days later, Hanny attempted to assassinate Co Langendijk, a hairdresser and Nazi sympathizer and collaborator, but she only wounded him and he escaped. A few days later, on March 21, 1945, Hanny was arrested at a checkpoint for carrying a pistol and a banned communist newspaper, De Waarheid, The Truth. She was interrogated, beaten, and locked in solitary confinement at the Wetteringschans prison. As the dye in her hair faded, a collaborator told the Germans to look at her roots. The Nazis, seeing the red peering through the black dye, were able to correctly identify Hanny as the infamous girl with the red hair the Nazis had been searching for since 1943. The chief of Amsterdam's Sicherheitsdienst, Willy Lages, ordered her execution. On April 17, 1945, Hanny Schaft was brought out to the sand dunes of Overveen and was told to walk out towards the sea. Hanny did so, and one of the two soldiers fired a shot at her. The bullet grazed the side of her head, and she stumbled forward but remained on her feet. It is said that Hanny responded over her shoulder, "I shoot better." The second soldier, furious, approached her swiftly and shot her in the head, killing her instantly. She collapsed on the sand and was then buried among the sand dunes to be forgotten. Thankfully, her grave would be revealed in testimony during the Nuremberg trials. Her body was found alongside the remains of 421 other resistance members, all male, who had perished before her. After hearing of her friend's capture, Truus disguised herself as a German nurse and went to the Wetteringschans prison to try and trick the German guards into letting Hanny leave with her for a medical examination. Sadly, Truus had arrived at the prison too late, and Hanny had already been killed. A couple weeks after the execution of the girl with the red hair, the Netherlands was liberated led by the Allies. Freddy and Truus Overstegen had survived and went on to build successful lives and families after the war, dying a couple years apart in their 90s. Truus, Freddy, and Hanny were all later recognized by the Dutch government for their efforts in the Second World War to undermine the Nazis in the Netherlands, and a memorial was later erected for Hanny. Hanny Schaft and Freddy and Truus Overstegen were three young women who found themselves in a horrific situation, watching their beloved homeland be occupied by a fascist state and their neighbors be killed, harassed, or dragged away to concentration camps. But rather than trying to muddle through and stay under the radar, they joined the Dutch resistance and used their good looks, intelligence, and resolve to fight back against the men who sought to kill their friends, families, and countrymen. While they are but a few examples of using the tactic of seduction to lure German soldiers to their deaths, the Overstegen sisters and Schaft were heroines of the Dutch resistance and were recognized decades later for their courage, sacrifice, and dedication to fighting back against the Nazis. Thank you for watching Seducing Evil, the brave Dutch women who used their beauty to trick and kill Nazis, here on History Decoded. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an upload. Feel free to leave a comment below or to suggest other topics we should cover in the future. Thank you again. And until next time, this is History Decoded.